The call came at 6:47 a.m. on a frigid Tokyo morning. I was already awake, standing at my apartment window in Shibuya, watching the first commuters hurry through the snow below. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago. When my phone buzzed, the name on the screen made my stomach drop. Ryota Tanaka, my half-brother. We hadn't spoken in 5 weeks, not since our last tense visit to Mom's private medical facility in Roppongi. His voice had that dangerous calm I remembered from childhood. Keiko, Mother passed away last night, peacefully in her sleep. I set down my mug, hands suddenly unsteady. Not from grief, from something else entirely. The funeral is Friday, he continued in Japanese, his tone shifting to pure business. I've handled everything, Aoyama Cemetery. Mother would have approved. Then his voice dropped lower, colder, the voice he used when giving orders to his men. About the inheritance, little sister. The will is very clear. Everything comes to me. The penthouse in Asabu, the properties in Kyoto, her investment accounts, all why 4.2 billion. You receive nothing. And Keiko? He paused deliberately. Don't think about contesting this. You know what happens to people who challenge me. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the gray Tokyo skyline. My mother, supposedly dead, and Ryota's first priority was threatening me about money. Not condolences, not grief, a threat. Something was very, very wrong. Let me explain. My name is Keiko Tanaka. I'm 32 years old, a former financial crimes investigator who spent 6 years with the FBI's International Corruption Unit in New York. My mother was Japanese. My father was Black American military stationed in Yokosuka. He died when I was 4. Mom remarried a wealthy Japanese businessman who already had a son, Ryota, 8 years older than me. I grew up watching Ryota climb the ranks of the Akatsuki Kai, one of Tokyo's most powerful crime syndicates. By the time I was 18, I couldn't stomach it anymore. I left for America, built a career tracking financial crimes and money laundering. I swore I'd never come back. But 2 years ago, Mom called. She needed me. So I returned to Tokyo, took a job as a financial consultant, stayed close to her. 9 months ago, everything changed. Ryota convinced Mom to sign power of attorney documents, claiming it would help manage her medical bills and investments. Mom was 68, sharp as ever, still teaching Ikebana classes and reading 3 newspapers daily. She was hesitant, but Ryota was persuasive. He was her stepson, after all, and he'd always taken care of family business. Within 3 weeks of getting that POA, Mom was diagnosed with severe dementia by Dr. Nakamura, Ryota's personal physician. Ryota moved her into Sakura Hills Medical Center, an exclusive facility in Roppongi, saying she couldn't live alone anymore. When I visited, I was devastated. My brilliant, elegant mother sat in a chair staring blankly at the wall. She didn't recognize me. She barely spoke. When she did, her words were confused, fragmented, meaningless. Is this really possible? I'd asked Dr. Nakamura. She was completely fine 2 months ago. Dementia can progress extremely rapidly in some patients, he said smoothly, adjusting his expensive glasses. Particularly with early onset cases, the cognitive decline can be quite sudden. But it didn't feel right. Nothing about this felt right. I visited Mom 3 times a week anyway. Even when she stared through me like I was a stranger, I'd sit beside her, hold her hand, tell her about my work, about the cherry blossoms blooming in Ueno Park. Ryota visited too, but less frequently. When he did, he always seemed rushed, checking his Rolex constantly, speaking in low tones with the facility staff. Now, standing in my kitchen with Ryota's words echoing in my head, I realized what I'd been too blind to see. This wasn't about Mom's health. This was about greed. This was theft, dressed up as family duty. I immediately called Sakura Hills. I'm calling about my mother, Yuki Tanaka, I said when someone answered. I just heard she passed away last night. There was a confused pause. I'm sorry, Tanaka-san, but I don't have any record of that. Let me check her room. My heart started pounding. A few minutes later, the nurse returned. Your mother is fine. She's having breakfast right now. Perhaps there's been some misunderstanding. I hung up and called the one person in Tokyo I trusted completely. Hiro Matsuda, a private investigator who specialized in corporate fraud and, when necessary, organized crime. We'd worked together on a Yakuza money laundering case 4 years ago. Keiko-san, he answered immediately. It's early. This must be important. Hiro, I need your help. My brother just told me my mother died, except she's alive. Silence. Then, Ryota Tanaka is your brother. Half-brother. And you think he's doing what, exactly? I think he's been drugging her to fake dementia, stealing her money, and planning something much worse. Another pause. Keiko, you understand who you're asking me to investigate? Ryota isn't just Yakuza. He's the Akatsuki Kai's lieutenant. He runs their entire loan sharking operation in eastern Tokyo. People who cross him disappear into Tokyo Bay. I know exactly who he is. Will you help me or not? Give me 24 hours. I spent the rest of that day making calls. First, I contacted a lawyer I'd worked with on a fraud case, Akari Suzuki. I explained the situation carefully. Keiko, this is serious, Akari said, her voice tense. If your brother has power of attorney and is misrepresenting your mother's condition while stealing her assets, we're talking about elder abuse, fraud, possibly attempted murder. But you need evidence. Solid, irrefutable evidence. And you need to understand that Ryota has connections. Judges, prosecutors, police. A legal battle could be dangerous. I understand. That evening, I drove to Sakura Hills. I didn't announce myself. When I reached Mom's room, she was in her usual position by the window, staring out at the Tokyo skyline. Her silver hair was thin now, her face more lined than I remembered. But something about her seemed different tonight, less sedated, more present. Omu-san, I said softly, pulling a chair beside her. It's me, Keiko. She turned slowly. Those familiar dark eyes met mine. Was that recognition? Or was I imagining it, desperately hoping? It's your daughter. Her mouth moved like she wanted to speak. But then a nurse entered to check her vitals, and whatever moment we'd had dissolved. I drove home through the snow, mind racing. What was Ryota planning? A fake funeral to convince everyone Mom was dead. Then what? Transfer all her assets while people thought she was gone. It was insane. It was also, I realized, potentially brilliant in its audacity. Hiro called me the next morning. Keiko, sit down. This is bad. I sat at my kitchen table, phone pressed to my ear. Tell me. Your brother has been very busy. In the past 8 months, he's transferred approximately 1.6 billion from your mother's accounts into shell companies he controls. He sold her properties in Kyoto to a corporation that traces back to him. He's been maxing out her credit cards. And Keiko, Dr. Nakamura. He and Ryota were roommates at Waseda University. They've been friends for 25 years. I felt physically sick. So Mom's dementia is medication-induced. If she's being heavily sedated with antipsychotics and benzodiazepines, it would explain everything. The sudden cognitive decline, the vacant behavior, all of it. That's attempted murder. That's what we need to prove. I'm working on getting her medical records, but that takes time. Meanwhile, I'd suggest visiting your mother again. Document everything. Record conversations with your brother if possible. That afternoon, I returned to Sakura Hills. When I got to Mom's floor, her room was empty. A nurse I didn't recognize was changing the sheets. Where's my mother? I asked, panic rising. Oh, Tanaka-san, your brother took her out for a drive. He said she needed fresh air. My blood went cold. When? About an hour ago. I ran to the parking lot, but Ryota's black Lexus was gone. I called him 5 times. No answer, no response. Finally, 3 hours later, they returned. Ryota helped Mom out of the car, supporting her as she shuffled slowly back to her room. She looked exhausted. more confused than ever. Ryota saw me waiting in the corridor. Keiko, he said, not bothering to hide his irritation. What are you doing here? You told me Mom died yesterday. Yet here she is? He had the audacity to laugh. A cold, sharp sound. Ah, that. My apologies. Miscommunication. Mom had a bad episode yesterday. Very concerning. And I thought, well, these things happen with dementia. False alarm. Where did you take her today? Just for a drive. She enjoys getting out. Really? Because she looks like she can barely stand. His expression hardened. Back off, Keiko. I'm her power of attorney. I make decisions about her care, not you. You want to challenge that? Hire a lawyer. See how far you get. He brushed past me, helping Mom into a room. I watched through the doorway as he settled her into her chair, speaking to her in low tones I couldn't hear. Then he left without looking at me. I was about to leave when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello. Silence. Then a whisper. A woman's voice, faint and strained. Keiko. Yes? Who is this? Keiko-chan, it's me. The voice was so quiet, I had to press the phone hard against my ear. Who? It's your mother. I froze. That was impossible. Mom was right there in her room, and this call was coming from a blocked number. Keiko, listen carefully. I don't have much time. Come to my room tonight. Late, after 10 o'clock. Make sure Ryota isn't here. And Keiko, don't tell anyone about this call. The line went dead. I stood in the parking lot, snow falling around me, staring at my phone like it had transformed into something alien. That was impossible. Mom couldn't have called me. She could barely speak coherently. And yet that voice, even whispered and strained, had sounded exactly like her. The real her. I waited in my car until after 10 p.m., watching the facility. Ryota's Lexus was long gone. The night shift was on. Just minimal staff. I used my visitor code to enter through the side entrance and made my way to Mom's room. She was sitting up in bed, lights low. When I entered, she turned to look at me, and in the dim light, I saw her eyes. Clear, focused, completely lucid. Close the door, she said in a normal voice. Not the confused mumble I'd heard for months. A normal, strong, perfectly clear voice. I shut the door, hands shaking. Omo-san, what? Sit down, sweetheart. We need to talk, and we don't have much time. I sat, completely stunned. Are you okay? What's happening? My mother, who I'd thought was lost in the fog of dementia, smiled. That knowing, sharp expression I remembered from childhood when she'd catch me lying about homework. I'm fine, Keiko. I've been fine this entire time. But the dementia, the diagnosis, I was pretending. The room seemed to tilt. Pretending? She reached over and took my hand. Her grip was firm, steady. Nothing like the weak, trembling hands I'd held for months. Keiko-chan, I'm 68 years old. I've been thinking about mortality, about what happens after I'm gone. And I realized I needed to know something important. I needed to know what kind of person my stepson really was. So you faked dementia to test him? When Ryota suggested the power of attorney, I saw an opportunity. I agreed, but I also consulted my own lawyer, someone Ryota doesn't know about. I moved most of my assets into an irrevocable trust weeks before Ryota got the POA. The accounts he has access to, I only left Ryota $2 billion in them, just enough to see what he'd do. I couldn't process this. Why didn't you tell me? Her eyes grew sad. Because I had to test both of you, sweetheart. I had to see who would visit me when I couldn't give them anything back. Who would sit with me even when I didn't recognize them. And Keiko, you came 3 times a week. You held my hand. You talked to me about your life. Even when I acted like I had no idea who you were. Tears were streaming down my face. Of course I came. You're my mother. I know that now. But Ryota, she shook her head. He failed, Keiko. Worse than I ever imagined. I've been documenting everything. Every time he pressured me to sign papers. Every time he got angry when I played confused. Every time he tried to give me medication I knew was dangerous. I have it all recorded. The Y 1.6 billion he stole up from the accounts I left accessible. I've been letting him dig his own grave. Mom, he told me you were dead. He's planning a funeral for Friday. She nodded grimly. I know. He told me yesterday during our drive. He said I was going to have an accident, that I'd pass peacefully. He wanted me to sign final transfer papers first, but I refused, played confused as usual. He's running out of time, and he knows it. This is insane. This is dangerous. We need to call the police right now. No, not yet. Your lawyer, Akari Suzuki. She's been my lawyer too for the past month. We have a plan. But I need you to trust me, Keiko. Can you do that? I squeezed her hand. Always. Over the next 2 days, we set everything in motion. Akari brought in the police, but discreetly. They agreed to let Mom's plan unfold to catch Ryota in the act, with undeniable evidence. We installed hidden cameras in Mom's room, tiny devices the size of shirt buttons. We coordinated with trusted nursing staff, and Mom continued her act, playing the confused, declining patient whenever Ryota visited. Ryota came twice more, once to pressure Mom to sign documents, transfer papers for her penthouse. Mom scribbled something illegible, acted like she couldn't understand. Ryota's frustration was barely contained. Just sign clearly, Mother, he said through gritted teeth in Japanese. I'm trying to help you. The second time, Thursday night, he brought medication. I watched the video footage later, and it made me sick. He told Mom it was her regular prescription, but we had it analyzed. It was a massive dose of sedatives, enough to stop her heart. Mom pretended to take it, but palmed the pills. Tomorrow, Ryota said, smoothing her hair with false tenderness. Tomorrow you'll finally rest, Mother. No more suffering. Friday morning arrived. Ryota had reserved space at Aoyama Cemetery's ceremonial hall. He'd sent notifications to relatives across Japan. Distant cousins I hadn't seen in years called me with condolences. I played along. Yes, the funeral was at 2 p.m. Yes, it was very sudden. The hall was packed. Ryota had spared no expense. White chrysanthemums everywhere, elegant flower arrangements, a large photograph of Mom from 10 years ago displayed at the front. He'd even prepared a glossy memorial booklet with her life story, full of touching language about devoted mother and after a long illness. I sat in the front row with my closest friend from New York who'd flown in that morning. Ryota sat across the aisle with his wife and their children. His face was appropriately sorrowful, composed. His wife kept touching his arm, comforting him. His children looked genuinely devastated. They'd loved their grandmother. At exactly 2 p.m., Ryota stood to give the eulogy. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and began speaking in Japanese. We gather today to honor the life of Yuki Tanaka, born April 3, 1956, passed away January 7, 2025. Mother was a remarkable woman, an ikebana master who taught beauty and discipline to hundreds of students, a mother who devoted herself completely to family. And in her final months, she trusted me to care for her, to manage her affairs, to ensure her comfort and dignity. He paused, his voice catching with emotion I now knew was completely false. Mother always had faith in me. She knew I would protect what she'd built, ensure her legacy continued through family. She wanted me to have her properties, her investments, everything she'd worked for, because she trusted me to use them wisely, to take care of those she loved. I stood up. Every head in the room turned. That's interesting, Ryota, I said loudly in Japanese. Do you want to tell everyone where Mother actually is right now? Confusion rippled through the hall. Ryota's face went pale. Keiko, sit down. This isn't appropriate. Where's the body, Ryota? Where is Mother's body? She's being cremated as we speak. We discussed this. Really? Because I called the crematorium. They don't have her. His wife grabbed his arm. Ryota, what is she talking about? The doors at the back of the hall opened. Every person in the room turned, and there, framed in the doorway, was my mother. She walked in slowly, using a cane but with her back straight and her eyes sharp. Behind her, two police officers in uniform followed quietly. The room erupted. People stood, gasping. Someone screamed. Ryota's daughter burst into tears. Mom walked down the aisle. When she reached Ryota, she stopped. "Hello, Ryota," she said clearly, her voice carrying through the silent hall. "I'm not dead, but your inheritance is." Ryota's mouth opened and closed. "Mother, you're confused. You're sick. This is a mistake." "I'm not confused, Ryota. I've been recording everything for 8 months. Every threat, every theft, every time you tried to force me to sign documents, every time you drugged me to keep me compliant." She turned to face the assembled crowd, many of them crying now, some in relief, others in shock. "I apologize for deceiving all of you," Mom said, "but I had to know the truth. I had to see what my stepson would do when he thought I was helpless. What I discovered broke my heart." One of the police officers stepped forward. "Ryota Tanaka, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, theft, and attempted murder. You have the right to remain silent." Ryota tried to run. He actually shoved past the officer and ran for the door, but he made it only 3 steps before he was tackled and handcuffed. His children were sobbing. His wife stood frozen, her face a mask of horror. As they led him away, Ryota shouted back at Mom in Japanese, "I'm your son. You can't do this to me. I needed that money." Mom watched him go, tears streaming down her face, but her voice was steady. "You were my stepson, but you stopped being my family the moment you decided my life was worth less than my bank account." The legal proceedings took months. Ryota initially fought the charges, claiming Mom was actually incompetent and he was trying to help, but the evidence was overwhelming. Video of him forcing her to sign documents, audio recordings of his threats, bank records showing the theft. Dr. Nakamura's testimony, after he was granted immunity, admitting Ryota had pressured him to prescribe unnecessary medications. In the end, Ryota pleaded guilty. He got 6 years in prison, was ordered to repay the Y-bound one in 6 billion plus Y-bar 500 million in fines. He lost everything. His wife divorced him, got full custody of their children. His position in the Akatsuki Kai evaporated. The syndicate doesn't tolerate members who draw police attention. Dr. Nakamura lost his medical license permanently. As for Mom, she moved into a smaller apartment near mine in Shibuya. She was done with the big penthouse, done with maintaining properties. She wanted to be close to family, to me. We had dinner together twice a week. She started volunteering at an elder abuse prevention center, sharing her story to help others recognize warning signs. One evening, about a year after everything happened, Mom and I sat on my balcony watching the Tokyo lights. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "The way you tested us?" She was quiet for a long time. "I regret it was necessary. I regret what Ryota became. But Keiko, I don't regret finding the truth. I had to know who would love me when I had nothing to give. You gave me everything that mattered," I said. "You taught me integrity. You taught me that doing the right thing matters even when it's hard." She smiled, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "And that's why you passed. Not just because you visited, though that mattered, but because even when you thought I was gone, even when you thought you were getting nothing, you fought for what was right. You protected me even when I couldn't protect myself. That's what real family does." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights shimmer through the cold air. "You know the saddest part?" Mom said finally. "What?" "If Ryota had just asked, if he'd been honest about needing money, I would have helped him. Not with everything, not enabling his choices, but I would have helped. Instead, he chose to steal. He chose to treat me like I was already dead, and that choice cost him everything." I held her hand, this remarkable woman who taught me more about strength and dignity in 1 year than in all the years before. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. Real family protects the vulnerable. And sometimes the bravest thing a 68-year-old woman can do is pretend to be helpless to discover who will help her when she truly needs it. That's what I learned from Yuki Tanaka, my mother, my hero, the woman who taught me that dignity matters more than money and that real love shows up even when there's nothing to gain.